We return to London in late May of 1454, as the newly founded Gauntlet has returned to House Chamberlain's manor with potentially a new lead from their encounter with the paranoid Cassandra Simone de Champs. A vision of a Nosferatu assailant in the manor moments before it burned down around the previous Gauntlet. Perhaps a powerful clue, or perhaps too broad to be of any use. Or worse still, perhaps it was just the misunderstood ravings of an afflicted and burdened creature. The Gauntlet finds itself with some space to breathe over the next week, perhaps more. Of course, technically, there's only one of you that's bound to remain in London. We'll start with Cormac. What does Cormac mean to do in the following nights?
Cormac is preparing to leave for Lincoln. He has nothing tying him here anyway, and seeing some of the Canaanites that he knew from way back when only strengthens his resolve that it's time to go. He will help the others as necessary. He wishes to go by a horse, however. And if Robert will help him to pick one out, that would be super.
What will Robert be doing? Good.
Robert has little to preoccupy him at this time. He will write a letter, perhaps two, but he'll agree to help Cormac pick out a horse.
Alright. Anything else he wants to do during this time?
Other than those letters, no.
Alright. I'd prefer to have verbatim of what you want to send your letters and to whom. Otherwise, I might take artistic license with it. What is Thomas doing over this week?
Oh my, so many things. Let's see. So I mentioned the transferal of ownership of Thomas's bank. Want to get that finalized. Also, the will we spoke of. I'd like to get that dealt with.
Okay. You will be able to work on moving ownership of the bank and working on the will. I would say you have enough basis in law that the will shouldn't prove too challenging. That's pretty simple stuff, just to decide who your stuff is going to. Changing ownership of the bank is a little bit more complicated.
That's why he's enlisting a solicitor.
Yes. On that note, I do have some notes here. Kazim does return to you early in this week, and he does tell you he's found a solicitor, a lawyer by the name of Ralph Gunsberg. He was recommended by your brother-in-blood Caleb, and he said he's worked with Caleb in the past. He only requires payment in coin. To Kazim's knowledge, and from the referral from Caleb, the Silence of the Blood is not known to this man. Despite his connections, he seems to be the kind of man that would rather be paid and not know anything more than he needs to know, which perhaps makes him very useful for Canaanites.
Exceptionally useful, in fact.
So this man can definitely help you along in transferring ownership of your bank, if you hire him.
Well, then of course I'm going to hire him, because my limited knowledge of law is not going to get me there.
All right, and you bring him into the manor? and everything?
If necessary, I'd much rather make it at his offices if possible, just to minimize his exposure.
Yes, you can do that. He does have an office, kind of more like a small study that he has, and you can work out of there instead. He's used to working with very private individuals, and that's something he's fairly accustomed to. So we'll say, and the transfer of the bank is well underway, and there are no foreseeable problems that Mr. Gunsberg reports to you. It sounds like just a matter of paperwork getting done. Let's see. Elenid, what are you working on over this week? Oh no, now her mic is dead. Is Sarah here?
Ah, yes, I am. I was just having a bad case of the Domo Arigatos.
Ah. What is Elenid working on over this week?
Did last week, and if so, how much time has passed?
You're cutting in and out. I didn't hear what you said.
Has passed since the last time that I was able to play, since I wasn't here.
Nothing's passed since you last played. We didn't play.
Oh.
So nothing's changed. Or nothing's happened, rather.
Well, she already sent her letter out. And she already sent the letter out all here. She could at least attempt in a thing with instructing the fledgling.
You're gonna try and instruct the fledgling on something?
More giving her a rundown of the inner work and how easily she can get screwed over by them.
Okay, so kind of tutoring Amelia on what to watch out for with wily Canites and their wiles.
Yeah, since she got herself a front row ticket to the environment.
Alright. Amelia seems grateful that you're still willing to help out. She confides in you that she feels bad. She feels like she betrayed Cormac by his reaction to Elysium, that she made a mistake by taking up this gift from Bella, and feels like she's already made so many mistakes. So your counsel is welcome. Alright, and Cormac, you are able, with your resources, to acquire a horse during this time. And Robert even helps you pick out a horse. Let me see. He helps you pick out a black and gray courser named Bolt. It's a fairly young steed, but it should serve your purposes. Fairly unremarkable. Certainly healthy.
Awesome.
All right. So, of course, the end of this week culminates in the return of Prince Ambrose to the court, to London. And he has called court for the introduction of this fledgling. But you've arrived, or you get notice arrives to you, Thomas, that while your request for audience was granted, you must also answer for a reported breaking of the silence of the blood by this fledgling. You hear, in bits and pieces through the grapevine, that apparently Amelia was seen moving at unnatural speed, and seen by a number of the kine who had to be quickly silenced by the sheriff and some of the Nosferatu. But that supposedly this has drawn some attention in a city that already has quite a history with the occult and the supernatural. They're highly sensitized to these kinds of things, these stories from grandmothers and grandparents. And so it's got the city on edge, and now you've been called to answer for her alleged crimes, while you also present her.
Well, assuming that the opportunity is available, Thomas would confront her with these accusations.
Absolutely. We will transition to that scene. You find Amelia in Elysium when you go looking for her, and she seems to be speaking to Helen, the Nosferatu, when she sees you coming in, and you can see the fear in her face as you're approaching. Have you heard the news? They say that I'm in trouble.
Come speak with me a while, Amelia. He's doing his best to keep kind of a measured demeanor, so as not to betray anything in front of the snakes. I mean, the harpies.
You definitely have the attention of Elysium on you, and she follows you over. Are you going to one of these side alcoves?
Yep.
Alright. You sit down, and the white noise of the water helps mask your discussion. What's going to happen to me?
That depends on a great many things. First, I would know whether or not there is truth to what I hear. Please, tell me of the incident in question.
Well, I didn't think I was running that fast. I was leaving your manor, and I was coming here. I was running, and there was people in the streets, but I didn't think I was going that fast. And she looks down at the table in front of you.
You did not call upon the powers of your blood.
I don't know. I wasn't thinking. I've run many places this week. It's just so easy. I'm so nimble. It was never difficult in Dorchester.
But as we explained to you aboard ship, London has many more eyes, so more caution must be used.
I don't think I did anything wrong, but everyone keeps saying I did.
Would you say you are considerably more nimble than you were in life?
Yes.
But you were quite fleet of foot before you returned, yes?
I would say so.
We might use that.
You will help me?
I will help us.
She nods, still fear in her eyes.
You understand that while unofficial, I did speak for you prior to your introduction to the prince. As such, certain expectations are laid at my feet, keeping you from breaching the traditions and laws that govern our kind is one such expectation.
Well, surely if this prince is fair and he holds court, he will listen to reason, yes? I cannot have been the first to have made a mistake like this.
Thomas doesn't answer that question directly. Is there anything else, any other slips that might have happened?
I don't think so. I've only been feeding in Bella Matea's loft upstairs.
Have you demonstrated any feats of strength or utilized any other gifts of your blood?
I don't think so. Everything's so different, and I never thought about what I could and couldn't do in Dorchester. It did not matter there. Everyone knew me. And there were so few people. Here, the streets are always so packed.
This was part of why I wished for you to stay at the manor. It might have seemed as though you were being placed on some kind of house arrest, but it really was for your best interest.
She nods, frowning. Kazim told me that I only had to tell you what I was doing and when I was feeding.
Yes. But that was after you had taken Bella Matea up on her offer.
There are so many rules I don't know. How can anyone be expected to follow these things?
It is because of these rules that so many of our kind are able to thrive here in London.
Well, I suppose we will see.
And it is by flaunting these rules that we find ourselves at the tip of a stake, wielded by a man of purported faith.
It's around this time that you see that the crowd is parting for Cash Solus, the sheriff. And he is making his way over to you.
Thomas rises to greet him.
You are to come with me. He's looking past you to Amelia.
Am I to be allowed to escort her?
You are expected in court tomorrow night.
Thomas steps out of the way.
Amelia looks between the two of you, getting up, clear concern on her face. You can see Cash has his hand on the hilt of his sword, but he lets Amelia step forward and he escorts her away as all of Elysium watches this scene, and she continues to look back over her shoulder as Cash moves her out. As that scene closes, a new one opens at St. Mary Undercroft, a chapel beneath Westminster Palace. Right. It is the night that Ambrose has called court. Is there anyone who is not intend to attend court, or is they going to wait for it? We'll start with Cormac.
He'll be there. Did he hear about what happened with Amelia?
You would have, yes.
Yeah, he'll definitely be there.
Yeah,
He still
Thomas
cares
would
for
have-
her.
Thomas would have made sure you all knew.
He would never admit this, but he still cares for her, even though he's very angry with her.
And Robert.
Yes, Robert will go.
Elenid?
Ned will attend.
Alright, so you all are here. And tonight, it's around midnight, as you funnel in from different parts of the palace and descend the steps into the Undercroft, this chapel. And you see that many are gathered here in the chapel beneath Westminster Palace, the old chapel of St. Mary Undercroft. A crypt providing a dark and private chamber for the damned to hold their own kind of gatherings. There's a large stone space with vaulted ceilings and thick columns to provide the chamber with an air of antiquity. There are a set of pews on either side, and an altar at the end is visible, and many of these pews are filled with the undead inhabitants, ghouls assorted, while others lean against or behind these large columns. Others make themselves small against the stone walls. At the end, Prince Ambrose stands at the dais by the altar, and his seneschal Genevieve is at his right side. And to her right side, a short, burly man in pristine plate armor and a sheathed sword, Cash. And to his right is another man, tall and thin, scholarly looking, wielding a black rod with a golden dome on it.
Can we speak? Are you waiting for us?
No, I'm just organizing myself.
Okay.
But actually, if you are gathered together, you may speak together, absolutely.
All Cormac wants to say is, let's get a front row seat. Even if we have to kick out some neonates to get it.
I second that.
Some pretty shite she's got into. I hope you had a word with her about that.
We might have a way to present a defense. It's a thin line, but it's something.
Are you two with us or off on your own? He'll ask Elenid and Robert.
Yes, I will go along. Well, to see what this is about firsthand. And her words would have more meaning to her.
But of course I will come along.
A show of solidarity for the Gauntlet, then. That might be in our favor.
It would look very unpleasant for a prince of the Covenant to overrule the will of the Gauntlet selected by his fellows.
Even so, go ahead.
I was going to say, the group of you find a space near the front. There is space enough at the front pew for each of you to sit down at.
Even though that is true, whatever it decides, I think we should abide by it. We've already thrown around our weight enough, don't you think?
To an extent. She hasn't warranted final death, I don't believe.
This is going to be fun to watch.
And from further down the aisle, you hear footsteps and see that Amelia is being escorted by some soldiers, some man-at-arms, until she's brought in front of the pews, in front of the dais center in the court. And Ambrose stands there and gestures towards you, Thomas. Step forward.
He rises and does.
Amelia stands side by side to you as you face the dais and face the Council of London. And she's holding at her shoulders, her face is stark white with fear, looking around at all the people watching. Amelia of Dorset, you've been found, confirmed by the agents of this court, to have broken the silence of the blood, a most dire crime in our world. But you have been sponsored by an esteemed member of the city and of the Covenant itself, Miss Chamberlain of the Gauntlet, who is to share in the burden of your punishment. What do you say in your defense? Amelia just looks to you, trembling.
She is young in the blood. Her natural graces come easily to her. The child was unaware that she had even used any powers of the blood. And though ignorance is no defense, given the fact that she is already quite nimble before she was brought into our world, It seems easy enough to mistake her natural dexterity for our unnatural gifts.
He looks at you unmoving. There seems to be no change in reflection on your words. Why do you claim this fledgling, Chamberlain?
If it must be known, I would happily share it with my prince, directly, privately. It is not for the ears of this court as a whole, as I believe the truth would bring her life into jeopardy, as well as an ongoing investigation tasked to the gauntlet by the Covenant Princes.
Her life is inconsequential to me. As it regards to your investigation, however, that is significant to me. However, the penalty for breaking the silence of the blood is the final death. Though these are not normal circumstances, nor do I have the sole authority to issue the final death of a Gauntlet Lord. But a message must be made tonight about how serious the silence is in this city of all cities with its history. He paces a bit on the dais, while the rest of the room seems standstill. If you insist on retaining this whelp for your investigation, for your duties as a Lord of the Gauntlet, I will demand a major boon from both of you for the burden of this city cleaning up after your fledgling. Alternatively, and preferably, I would rid our kind of this bumbling fool and see her destroyed before she endangers us further. You can take whatever information you need from her. In exchange, I will only demand a minor boon from yourself for the inconvenience of all of this. Decide now.
Thomas glances a moment back at Cormac.
He shakes his head slightly.
I wait the Lord, my liege's requests for his major boon.
You accept the major boon, then, to spare her life.
I would not condemn a fledgling for her sire's faults.
His jaw shifts as though disappointed at your answer.
No more so than I would condemn a child for the sins of the father.
You are old enough to know that it is more important to sacrifice the young to preserve what we have. Lest we all burn to the fires of the church. But I accept your decision. You are a very fortunate whelp. And he looks down to Amelia, who is just wide-eyed. He looks out to the court as though gauging their reaction or waiting for a challenge. What is Robert's reaction to this?
Upon mention that Thomas is going to take the major boon, a wave of relief washes over Robert. Right now, he's just taking in the situation, rubbing his chin.
And what is Cormac doing?
Cormac's face is showing quite a bit of anger now. There's no sign of that easy smile of his, and he's drumming his fingers on the table, looking between Amelia and Thomas. It's clear that this is not the choice he would have made.
And Elenid?
Annette has her hands folded in her lap and is with a rather blank expression. She is more unfazed by this, likely due to her, well, lack of being on humanity. Those need to know their place, and those who don't know their place punished. No, she is not talking right now. It's more me rating what the mindset is.
Sure. After a few more moments of tense silence, Ambrose paces back to the center and looks back to Amelia. Consider yourself presented. I will call upon this boon when I deem fit. And he looks back to you as though saying the same thing.
As you say, Your Grace.
If there is nothing else to be discussed here, this court is adjourned. I would have you rid my sight of this thing. He's looking at Amelia with a glare.
Thomas escorts her back down to the pew where the rest of the gauntlet waits.
And he descends the dais and starts walking down the aisle, followed shortly by Genevieve, who looks at you with it's a gaze, it's not a glare, it's a look that you haven't seen before. But it's very brief, and she continues to follow behind. And she is followed, of course, by Cash Solus, and then this scholar carrying this black rod. It seems that some of the rest of court has begun murmuring to itself as to some of these words, and each of you catch glances cast your way from this person or that. Some are leaving, some linger to speak. Something like the end of a church service, you think, in this very dark chapel. And the scene is yours. The four of you together and Amelia safe. I don't know how to repay you.
You will repay me by learning to keep your blood down, and by avoiding any future run-ins with the sheriff.
Yes, of course. I'm sorry.
Up you have with this latest event, like no talk of Elysium.
I'm missing about half of what you're saying.
Of course. As fair warning, you have with this latest, likely become the new topic of Elysium.
They'll move on in a month or so.
After mocking and public humiliation.
Which we will be blissfully ignorant of, as we will be in Lincoln.
So, a major boon. Well, since I found this display quite admirable, if that boon is ever called, you have my assistance.
I appreciate the generosity. And he pauses a moment to look and gauge Cormac's state of mind.
Cormac will turn to meet his eyes, and the rage is evident there. It was bloody stupid is what it was.
Amelia looks to you.
All this over a girl. A fledgling girl.
A fledgling girl that you have saved the life of, and as such could potentially have some form of life boon over.
I will not perpetrate the same tricks. And I will not perpetuate this cycle any longer.
His words about sacrificing the young to protect everything that is built. Does that happen often?
Too often.
She looks dejected.
You're knee-deep in shite now, girl. Everything you do will be scrutinized from here on out until they forget about you. Or you do something that truly gets you destroyed.
Or something that is truly laudable. For now, though, at least for the next decade or so, I'd recommend keeping your head down and your nose clean.
She looks to you, nodding. Should I stay here then? Or go with you?
With your presentation comes freedom. The choice is yours. You have a year and a day where you do not need to worry about sustenance. If you choose to stay, I would use that time as wisely as you can. Make contacts, meet people, learn the way of the city, make friends. Find mortals that you can influence, gently, mundanely. You're a pretty enough girl, though perhaps a bit too innocent.
I will take your words and I will try. Thank you. I will not forget this. And she tries to force a smile, but the fear and the mixture of emotions is still there. And she slowly departs from you, following down the aisle as some others continue to file out.
I'm a bit shocked at you, Cormac. Of all the people I expected to condemn me, you weren't the one.
I have my reasons for it. You know as well as I my propensity for protecting the downtrodden. But she is a liability to everything we're doing. Especially now that you own one of the princes of the Covenant, a life boon, or a major boon. He can ask you to do anything he wants.
True.
He's a prince, Thomas. He can't be trusted.
So you would have had me strike her down.
To save your own skin, yes.
Ah. But isn't that what the elders do?
Oh, that hurts him. Can I make a self-control check?
I think that's appropriate. I'll have you roll a base of difficulty 4.
So 6 for me.
Yeah, I'll do 6. You feel the beast come out.
Not a botch, at least.
Not a botch, but not a success.
I will spend willpower.
Okay.
He does not want a frenzy here in court. That would be bad.
Yeah, there's a couple moments there, Thomas, where you see Cormac's fangs come out and his hands are coming up as he's coming towards you before he seems to gain some composure again.
Don't ever say anything like that to me again.
Struck a chord, did I?
He wrinkles his nose. It's clear he's still fighting very hard. And so he's going to turn and leave.
Cormac's defense. Sorry.
No, that's it. I'm done.
In Cormac's defense, having that circumstance done was rather the of the options.
Just because a thing is easy doesn't make it right.
You can each see, because he's not being very secretive about it, by one of these columns, you see the ghoul, this jester, Tom Lafoy, is kind of sitting with his feet on one of the pews looking at you, and he's kind of giggling to himself. Looking especially at Thomas pointedly.
Thomas kind of arches a brow at the jester. Something you wanted to add?
He's a good distance away, unless you want to go up to talk to him.
Well, he'd raise his voice if he's being stared at pointedly.
I think you'll find in time that was not a wise deal.
What is the life of a ghoul, unbound to any master, really worth? I wonder.
There are bigger things than cats out there, so best befriend a mouse aware. He seems to bring his hands up to his giant teeth.
Come now. Must you start a fight with everyone?
He hops off the pew and starts strolling away, kind of skipping almost. Enjoy your purchase. I know I shall. And soon enough, he skipped on out.
Perhaps we'll catch up to Amelia when he begins to head for the door as well.
Alright, are you all departing?
Yes.
And Cormac's already gone. Robert's going?
Mm-hmm.
Alright. So this scene closes as you, the last of you, depart the Undercroft of St. Mary's. You reach the main floor of the Westminster Palace and see that mostly everyone is gone now, Amelia included, but the night's still fairly young. And this jester Tom Lafoy makes quite a scene as he kind of prances and skips and flips his way through the palace on his way out. Where will you go now? Oh.
Or, I'm sorry, are you asking me or the rest?
Kind of the group as a whole. We'll start with you, Cormac. You got a head start. Where did you go?
Quick question first. Does Chamberlain Estate have stables? Or both can be kept?
Yes.
That's where he's headed then. He's going to groom his horse. It's something from his childhood that will calm him down.
Alright. So you head to the stables, and the three of you remaining come up. We'll start with Robert. What are you doing now?
Has he had a chance to make any progress with his letter?
Your letter?
Yeah.
Yes. I will say that by the end of this week, you have your letter done. Let me just review what you wanted to put down. Yeah, I'll say that your writing is all done.
In that case, he...
Actually, the second one, I will take a wits expression, difficulty 7 for you.
Okay.
Okay. So yeah, that's taken care of. So with your letters done, where will you go? What will you do now?
suppose until... Has Apples come by at all yet?
Yes, he got your letter.
Okay, good. And since that seems to be all taken care. He would probably just try to find the bookshops of London.
Okay.
Yeah, he would just wander about.
All right. So Robert departs, and then Thomas and Elenid, you're together. What does Elenid mean to do now?
Is there any way to tell where our companions, do we see them through the crowd, or were they long gone by the time we got out?
Cormac's long
Outside.
gone. You see Robert start to depart your company, but he's like within arm's reach as he's departing.
And Amelia?
Amelia's also long gone.
Sorry, what? My connection.
Amelia is gone.
Well, with this excitement, she would like to go to the usual place to go get a bite to eat.
That being the inn that Thomas showed you? Yes?
Yes.
Okay. Alright. And Thomas, as your group splits up.
Thomas will mention to Ellen and keep an eye out for Amelia. If you see her, see if you can't console her a bit. I'll do the same for Cormac. Don't imagine the young lady would be very pleased to see me at the moment.
Did we lose Sarah?
Oh, no, I'm here.
Okay.
Was someone talking to me?
Thomas was.
Oh, what did he say?
While you're out, if you run across Amelia, do keep an eye on her and try to console her a bit. I'll do the same for Cormac.
I'm not certain Cormac wants to see you right now.
I'm not certain Amelia wants to see me either.
But, well, the fledgling.
I'm less likely
Right.
to do... Go ahead.
Provided I run into her.
If you don't, then she's probably at Elysium. She'll come back to the manor eventually. I'm likely to do a good deal less damage with Cormac than with Amelia.
Well, we will see about that.
Alright, so the two of you depart. We will catch up with Cormac first. You reach the stables at House Chamberlain. They're modest, but well prepared. You find Bolt, your gray and black courser, the long black mane.
Am I just allowed in without question, or do they stop me to ask who I am?
You're recognized enough by the guards that, for the sake of convenience, they don't question when known guests of House Chamberlain are staying. They won't stop you. Unless they're told otherwise.
Alright. Then before Cormac starts grooming, he will approach Bolt. They're still new to each other, and since he is a vampire, he's going to have to try to calm him a bit.
You do have some apprehension from Bolt when it sees you come close. It backs away into the corner of its pen and kind of stomps his feet a few times as if pacing in place.
Easy, boy. He'll move forward very slowly with his palms up.
Take a charisma animal ken from you, difficulty 6. It stops rearing up. It was starting to rear up, and then it seems to slow down, and it hasn't moved any closer to you, but it hasn't gotten any more aggressive or fearful. It seems to be watching you carefully.
Easy, boy. And he'll move forward a little more. Wanting as his endgame to get close enough to pat his withers and comfort him.
Are you trying to make your skin any warmer than it normally is?
Would I think that's a good idea given my ride in Animal Ken?
I think you would, especially for breaking in a horse and getting it used to you. The cold hand of the dead is not as easy to soothe with as one that's at least somewhat comparable to life.
Then he will spend blood to flush his skin.
You get close enough to pet it and calm it down with your hand, and that does seem to help a bit. It tries to avoid looking at you, but it's not going anywhere right now. It still seems uncomfortable, but not panicked.
He'll grab a brush from the wall then and begin brushing his mane and tail. Letting Bolt warm up to him a bit. Not trying anything fancy. Mostly just the repetitive motion is for his own good, because he still feels the beast stirring inside.
You do find that it does calm you down. It brings you a sense of peace, being able to zone out a bit and not really think about anything as you're brushing Bolt. And likewise, this goes a long way towards calming Bolt down and relaxing your new horse. A good 30 minutes pass before you even realize what's happened, and it seems to almost be falling asleep standing there in its stall. The door is still open but hasn't gone anywhere, and you feel that you've calmed yourself and Bolt down.
Then he'll leave the stall and close the door behind, and go to have a sit on a hay pile somewhere so he can think. Certainly Thomas won't know to look for him here.
Alright. That's easy enough to find. And you sit down. Meanwhile, we'll follow Robert. And I'm sorry, where did you say you were going, Robert?
He's going to find one of the most prestigious book stores in London.
That's right. Make a perception investigation roll, standard difficulty. There are not many bookstores to be found, though they do exist. Do you have any specialties applicable here?
No.
Okay. You find one. You find one of these bookstores. You find a place called Hatchard's. It's actually a fairly nice building. There's what appear to be some small glass windows looking in, and it's very late. It's close to 1 in the morning, so right now it's closed. But you do see a single light on. It's a multi-story building, and of course there's buildings stuffed in on either side of it. And at the second of the third level, second story of the third, I should forget, it's a 3-story building. On the second level, you see a small light. The store itself looks closed. It's a single wooden door. It's a pretty simple, although clearly well-kept store.
And the door is locked?
When you try to open it, it is locked. You think it must be locked fairly well. Even the sign seems to have some nice gilded lettering.
Let's show some interest in the light. He'll tune his hearing up and see if he can tell if anyone's inside.
Sure. Perception, alertness, difficulty is going to be 8. You can subtract your aspects. Absolutely. You hear something so faint no one would ever hear this, but with your enhanced abilities, with your enhanced senses, you hear this little dragging sound. It sounds like some small, fine tool against something soft. Maybe paper?
Hearing that, we'll most likely assume some scribe is writing something in there.
Potentially.
What is the current time?
It'll be around 1 in the morning. There are still people going up and down this street, guards among them. It's not packed, but there's people here and there.
Well, Robert will... Why not? He'll knock on the door.
Okay. You knock, rattle on the wooden door, and it's about 4 or 5 minutes later. It's quite a while until someone actually cracks the door open, and you see it's stopped by a chain, and you see a small face of a young man poke his head out. Who's there?
Hello there, my name is Robert. Sorry to disturb you at this hour, but I figured you were still awake.
You know who I am?
No, I do not.
What do you want at this hour?
I was just curious. What are you writing?
What? You come out here at middle of the night and you want to know what I'm writing?
Precisely.
Transcribing some text. There's a old manuscript written in Greek, turn it into Latin. Came from the Orthodox Church. And he kind of sizes you up, trying to figure out if you even know what that is.
Robert has a decent amount of theology. Want to roll for it?
You don't have to roll, you know. It seems like he's very skeptical of you.
Why, yes. The Eastern Church. I know of it.
Right.
Fascinating. What, by chance, are you scribing or transcripting?
What's
The
it,
works of some saint, by chance?
What's it to you? And he looks like he's getting a little bit nervous now.
No, I'm sorry. I don't mean to make you uncomfortable. I'm just have a fascination for such things.
Well, perception, empathy, standard difficulty. You feel like there's something off about this young man, but you're not really sure what. Yeah, it's work by one of the saints of the East. Not as well known in the Catholic tradition. That's what it is. Not very exciting stuff. I have to get back to work now. So, good night.
Of course. It was a pleasure talking to you. Perhaps I'll come by later and see what you've transcribed.
Why would you do that?
Well, perhaps I would like to purchase it. Unless it's already taken.
He's looking up and down the street through this very narrow slit he's made. What, you some kind of collector?
Ah, I am. I thought it would have been obvious by now, but perhaps not.
You ever collect things, not in the traditional realm of, well, the good book?
I collect writings of all sorts. if that is what you mean to ask.
How much coin you got?
Well, he does have, Robert does have money from selling the horse. Is that any way comparable to a book? Or is a book greatly more expensive?
They're actually probably pretty comparable. They're both very expensive items in this time. And there's obviously going to be some change with that during time and value, and I'm not going to get into specifics. I'm going to say that you sold something very expensive. This is a very expensive object, so yeah, with that sell, you could purchase most tomes, you think. Most standard tomes, unless they're of particular rarity.
Without not saying anything much more, Robert will simply reach for a coin purse and begin to jingle it.
He looks down at you, and the door is kind of creaking open a little bit more. You can see his face now a bit better. Right. Well. I'm sure I got some text you might be interested in then.
Oh, wonderful. I hope it's not too much trouble to peruse your wares at this hour.
Well, don't suppose I wouldn't turn down a customer at this hour. Thank you. And he unlocks the door and slowly lets it open.
Robert will take his invitation and... I'm sorry, I didn't catch your name.
My name? My name is, Richard. Richard Somerset.
Robert will try to read his emotions. Is he telling the truth?
Oh, perception, empathy. Difficulty 8. You're not really good at reading this kid tonight. You're not sure. You really can't tell.
I do have a specialty.
What's your specialty?
In empathy. And that's just finding the truth.
Oh. He is not being honest about his identity. You know that. Although those are fairly common names and surnames, it's something you think he pulled together the moment you asked.
Can he scan his knowledge of writings and see if it's from any book series?
What, the name?
Yeah, that's of that sort.
You, with your knowledge, you think it's just a common name. He just pulled names of people he's probably heard and places he knows and probably put together. You suspect. And as you kind of, step in to see him, you also kind of gauge his appearance a bit more. He does not look like a scribe, so far as you can tell. He's got very dark clothing on. He's got his hood up. And you catch a glance at his hands and by some of the candle lights that he's got set down, and his hands are scarred up. He's actually missing a pinky.
Robert will look the man over and pause at noticing the pinky. Good heavens, what happened to your finger?
Oh, Just a misunderstanding is all. Why don't I find you a text on that Greek saint I was talking about?
Oh, yes, I'd love that.
And he starts going upstairs. You can see inside there are the room of this building as you walk in is not very large, although it's matted wall to wall with bookshelves filled with both books and scrolls. And then there's this staircase that goes up and a staircase that goes down.
Two staircases.
There's one that it's pretty common. You've seen something like this arrangement before. It's something like a trap door that kind of goes into a cellar. You just recognize that. Situated under the ascending staircase.
Robert's curiosity is burning right now. What books are in this main area?
As you look around, you see a lot of the things you've seen in your travels to Lincoln and York. Much like other bookstores of the few you've been able to find, it seems to be mostly filled with theology-related texts. There are some law, there's some books on finance, although those are a little bit more rare. A lot of philosophy. There are some history books here. There's also a section you find that's filled with poetry. You do feel yourself drawn to those poetry books.
He is, but at the moment he realizes he needs to be cautious around this unknown person at the moment. He'll patiently wait for the man to come back. And when he does, he will aura read him.
I'm gonna have you make a willpower roll, difficulty 5, to avoid going over to the poetry section. That will make it 4.
Alright.
Alright, as much as you long to explore the rare and creative findings of the poets of your age, you feel that now is not the time for that. Perhaps later. You're able to stay focused long enough, and you do hear a bit of some rustling since you still have your heightened hearing, and there seems to be some movement upstairs. Things being shuffled around. It's taken quite a while.
I don't want you to take much longer. Robert will call out for the man. Are you okay up there?
Yes, be down in a second. About a minute later, you hear some quick steps, and he comes down the staircase in a hurried pace with a text, this book, this old hoary tome under his arm, and he puts it down on the table. His missing peak once again exposed. Here we are. I think you'll like this text just fine. This will be right up your alley, I suspect. Now, what about that coin?
Robert will look at the tome. What is it exactly?
True to his word, you see a text that it's written in Latin, and it does appear to be a tome that details the stories of some of the local saints known to England. And you are aware of some of these. You haven't heard all the stories, but a cursory glance through the text shows that it's definitely something you haven't read before. Some of it's familiar, some of it's not. It goes into more of the bibliography and history of some of these people, where they came from and what they supposedly did, and then how the church celebrated them afterwards. It does seem to be legitimate.
He will bring out his coin purse, but first he will aura read this man.
Sure. Perception, empathy, difficulty 7.
Lost.
Yeah, you are not able to get a read on him very well. You're not sure why, but you just not able to focus in this moment.
In that case, can he try to see if there's anything supernatural in this area?
Sure, perception, awareness. Difficulty 6, but I think your aspects will apply here.
All right.
You're looking over this text, and you look to him, and you don't really sense anything strange. And you try to tune yourself into the world that you're a part of, and you do feel something. But as you become aware of it, we are going to cut away just as you start to realize something. Now we will change scenes. We will follow Thomas as he returns to the manor, I believe, to look for Cormac.
He'll ask at the gate if the gate guard noticed which way his Irish house guests meandered toward, if indeed he had returned at all.
Well, they very quickly point out that he went in the direction of the stables once he returned.
He'll dip his head and murmur a thank you and head in that direction. And once he's a good dozen or so paces away from the stable, he'll call out, "Ahoy!" and then head inside.
And Cormac, you're not in the stables, you're off kind of behind them where there are some bales of hay that you've sat down at, and you hear not too far away the sound of Thomas calling out.
Oh, fuck. He considers finding a place to hide, then realizes that he's not a 12-year-old boy anymore. And he will move around the side of the stables to enter from the back.
And he will probably find Thomas parked upon a stool.
did you find him when you come into the stables from the back?
Still have more pushing to do on that dagger of yours, do you? Haven't buried it deep enough.
Thomas spreads his hands and braces them in surrender. Quite the opposite. I've come to offer an olive branch.
Cormac stands there and stares at him, waiting for more.
I wonder if you might lend me a hand in something.
Now you're asking me for a favor. It's rather gutsy of you.
It's served me well so far. I mean to divest myself of a particular property. I would be in your debt if you would to review the documents along with me, just to make sure I'm not being screwed over by a crooked lawyer.
And why would I do that if I'm no better than one of the elders?
That. I merely meant to imply that I did not wish to follow in the footsteps of our predecessors.
Nor do I. But there are certain cancers that must be cut.
On that, you and I agree. Speaking of which, I've been meaning to get you alone so that you and I can talk about Ellen Alice's proposal. You and I were the only ones to have heard it directly from her, and we also seem to have the most reason to consider it seriously.
Cormac looks rather stricken. He can't hide it. Is that right?
Unless your reputation precedes you inaccurately.
It does not.
And I don't know just how much you stand to lose if the powers that be deign to punish us for such a transgression. But I do. I know exactly how much I stand to lose, down to the last laborer on the docks, the last stitch of cloth, and the last stick of lumber. Precisely what I stand to lose.
You stand more to lose than that for treachery. There will be no major boons that will save you from that.
Indeed. But then begs the question, knowing all of this, why do we continue to consider the option?
Because the reality of our situation is far more terrifying.
Perhaps.
Or do you wish to hear that I think they're right?
I saw it in your eyes the night we spoke to Ellen. I think you agree with her at least as much as I do, if not more.
So what if I do? I'm a member of the Gauntlet now. I can't turn tail and run with those slavering dogs.
Who said we run with them?
What exactly are you proposing?
Precisely what I told Ellen. I mean to serve England first.
And you think England is best served by degrading its foundation?
I think the foundation of the Gauntlet is already rotted from within. And before it collapses in on itself, it needs to be taken down and rebuilt anew.
Dangerous words you're speaking.
Almost sound like the words of revolt, don't they?
Damn near. And if you were talking to anyone else...
They'd probably go running to the prince already.
But you know damned well I won't.
Call it a measured risk.
You're a damned enigma, you know that?
I do like to keep people guessing.
You can wound me with some of your words and then, in the very same night, intrigue me with others.
The way I see it, the foundation of the Gauntlet are the Gauntlet princes. We can't take them out without bringing down the entire structure upon our own heads. Instead, we start with the very young. Convince them to question.
He grins at that. Don't you think I've already tried that? It got me exiled once, ask Ambrose.
I don't mean for them to raise up in wholesale rebellion. Merely to question the validity of the authority over them. Abide by the rules of the inn, of course. That doesn't mean that every rule is right. It doesn't mean that every ruler is right. The law is a blade, Cormac, and it cuts according to the sovereign that wields it.
A fact I know well. But who would you propose we bring in on our little scheme? There's bound to be spies in every cache.
For now, I think it's best it be a conspiracy of merely two. Though, damned though I'm reluctant to admit it. Perhaps Bella.
You spit those words out right now. Spit them out and stomp them with your boot.
Didn't you see how she was looking at you?
Like she wanted to strangle me? Yes, I saw it.
Almost apologetic.
Bullshit.
And maybe it's only to line her own purse. But the words were there.
Words are just words. Same as yours, same as mine. I'm interested by what you say, yes. But I'm still not sure I can trust you. I'm just waiting for the hammer to fall.
What more do I need to do to convince you? I've just placed my own head on the chopping block for the young.
I suppose that's true. For now, let's let this stew in the pot a little longer. You said you had some documents you wanted me to see.
Indeed, I've a solicitor on retainer drawing up the transfer of property. A business.
Transferred to whom?
An associate of mine. You likely won't know her.
And likely wouldn't care if I did.
Thomas smirks a bit. As you say. Out of curiosity, would I be able to go and check with this solicitor? Obviously, it's crazy late at night, but
Check with him about.
the transfer of ownership.
Like to check its progress?
Right, just to look over the documents and make sure everything's in order.
You'd have
I'm
to,
not being-
like you said, it's very late at night. You could easily get the documents, you just, not this moment.
In that case. Of course, the average solicitor won't be up and about at this hour. I'll have Kazim send for him in the morning to meet with us in the evening.
Then I shall be prepared to receive him.
Much obliged.
As for our other conversation, let's revisit it again in a few weeks after we've had time to think.
Of course. Just know that I've been stewing on it already quite a while.
As have I, and I thought I was alone in that.
I may be many things, but I am at least sincere. I reserve my two-facedness for Lycium and the court.
And I've never had the knack to begin with.
Consider that a boon.
So what now then? Brothers again?
I'll take comrades. I'll let you decide when brother is earned.
A fine answer. Where have the others gotten off to?
I've no idea where Robert's gone. Something about booksellers. I would imagine Elenid has gone to find a bite.
And I think I'll return to the library and continue that wonderful book.
think I'll join you at the manor and see if Amelia's returned there.
A dark look passes his face again. You're going to have to learn to let her go. You already owe enough as it is.
Which is precisely what I mean to speak to her about.
You must cut out the cancer. One way or another.
Ambrose doesn't invest in the boons lightly. She has at least that to fall back on. She's of value to him. More so, still alive than having met final death.
Are you at the same introduction I was? He could not care less whether she lived or died.
But now she owes him a boon.
What can a neonate do for a prince?
Tonight? Tomorrow night? Quite little. A year from now? A decade? A century? Ambrose didn't get to where he is by playing the short game.
And he is a clever bastard, isn't he?
And we will need to be twice as clever to beat him.
He gets a faraway look for a moment, and then nods slowly.
Besides which, Amelia is the perfect vessel for our message. She will be an object lesson to the neonates of London. Precisely what can happen if you run afoul of the wrong elder.
That will be quite the lesson to learn for them. One I wasn't able to teach with words alone.
And that there are those amongst our station who are willing to put our reputations and own lives on the line, so that those who would otherwise suffer for the failings of their progenitors may yet remain.
I have come to think of you as something of a puzzle, Thomas. You turn one knob, and another series of knobs appears.
Such is the way of elders. Plans laid within plans, so that once everything is laid in place, no one can quite parse out all the pieces.
Someday you'll have to teach me how you do that. But not tonight. I'm still a bit angry with you.
Hold on to that, you might need it.
Let's leave this stinking stable, shall we?
As you say. And he'll step aside and gesture for Cormac to lead the way out the door.
And he will.
All right. So the two of you depart together and heading to the manor, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
Okay. And meanwhile, Elenid, you are hunting at the inn. And how are you going about hunting?
Before she hunts, she would like to scan the room and see if there's anything out of place.
Sure, what are you looking for?
Anything that would be... Since, considering we've seen a table that has been completely vacant before.
Yeah, I'll take a perception alertness. Difficulty 7. And still quite busy. There's quite a bit to detect here.
Perception what?
Alertness. I'd also accept investigation. You don't think anything's really out of the ordinary. It's a busy inn. It's kind of hard to see everything in here all at once. People keep kind of interrupting your sight. But nothing really seems odd. There's no missing tables or tables suspiciously unoccupied or anything like that tonight.
Alright. So, she will... And... Are there any groups here?
Any what?
I mean, I know the place is crowded as all get out, but...
I didn't hear you. Are there any what? Oh, groups.
Sorry. Are there any smaller groups here? Because I know there's... I know there's a lot of people in the inn, but...
So you're looking for, like, collections set apart from everyone else?
More smaller groups of people as opposed to...
Yeah, there's many small groups. There's lots of tables here, and groups of 2 to 3 people at many of them. Some are larger than that, but there's many of these smaller groups of people.
Mm-hmm.
Sitting around drinking. It's not very loud for an inn, but it's about what you'd expect.
All right. She will go and add herself to one of the tables, and unlike the previous attempts, she's not going to go over story or homeland. Instead, she will go over a bit of poetry and the like.
Charisma, expression, standard difficulty.
Alright.
You are very successful. You find a small group that seems a little bit bored, and you find a good segue to start chatting them up, and you recite some poetry and get into a discussion with them, and it actually pans out very well. They draw to you to flies. You're very captivating with your stories. How much do you mean to feed tonight?
I just needed a single blood point.
Oh, easily done. Yeah. You gain their trust and interest and perhaps even friendship among some of them by an hour of reciting poetry and just being a charming, entertaining person. Give me one moment. I had to look over my notes really quick. So are you just leaving after you tell your poetry and feed?
I'll stay with them a bit longer and socialize, but after doing, will politely excuse her. Well, after a certain amount of time has elapsed, she excuse herself and head back to the manor.
Give me one moment. Alright, so you said after you find a good out, you excuse yourself?
Yes, she will sit around and socialize with them until she finds that out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're well practiced at socializing very mechanically to the point that you need to, until everyone seems like they're kind of parting ways, and you make your way out. And as you're making your way out, we'll change scenes. So you're walking through the streets, leaving the inn, and you're actually not going that far. You just kind of turn a corner, and you hear a voice from someone behind you. That was very good. Almost had me teared up. The way you tell those stories.
She stops walking and slowly... Do I catch a glimpse of this man?
You do. He is staying to the shadows, and he looks fairly thin and wiry. You realize you can't see him that well. He's really sticking to those shadows. You seem well practiced at that. I think if you ever find yourself in Chester, you might ply your trade with Rothschild. He would appreciate that. He kind of nods, and you see the silhouette of his head bobbing up and down.
If we've had the pleasure, may I have your name?
No. Consider me someone who appreciates poetry. I like a good ending to a poem. You're good at that.
She gives a polite smile and and says, "Thank you. I would not be nearly as good as I was if I didn't read and listen to the one cross."
Do you ever tell the tragic poems when you're out hunting?
Occasionally, but it usually depends on the location. Not every place is suitable for such things.
Probably harder to reel them in. I don't like sad poems either. I would prefer that you didn't become part of one.
She furrows her brows a little. Exactly what do you mean by that?
I mean, not everyone here would like to see the gauntlet succeed. Many would rather not. kind of shifts his weight. And you can see in his shifting, his limbs don't look very proportional. They don't look very healthy. He's actually very crouched over. You think perhaps he's very tall if he wasn't. Anyway, you might talk to that Rothschild in Chester about your poetry.
I will definitely keep that in mind.
You might tell him another fan of poetry from London sent you.
She nods.
He seems to nod a few times, and you see that dark silhouette bob a few more times. And while you're looking at him, he steps backwards further into the shadows and melts away. And then there's no one there.
Yep, she's going straight back to the manor.
You are allowed to do so. Moving perhaps quicker than you were, you disappear down this alley in the direction of the manor. Meanwhile, we'll catch up with Robert. Robert, as you're tuning in your senses, you're gauging this young man as maybe not being entirely truthful with you. You realize there is something in this bookstore that definitely catches your attention. It's upstairs, though. It's not in front of you. It's not down here. It's wherever he was just at.
Something supernatural upstairs.
Something. When you tune in, you realize there is something very unsettling about the air, and you realize it's coming from upstairs.
Say, do you mind if I watch you scribe for a bit?
Watch me scribe. I don't do so well when people are watching me, see? Can't work. It's distracting, you see. But, and he taps at the text a few more times. This is what you want right here. He nods.
Why, that is what I want. But I would like to see what Greek text you are working on. Would you mind I catch a little glimpse?
He swallows. Sure. Why not? And he forces a smile, and you see he's missing quite a few teeth. Right this way. And he turns slowly to move up the stairs.
Robert nods in appreciation and steps behind him.
You go upstairs, and you see that it's a very busy, very messy room. When you reach this second level, there's a candlelight by the window you caught before. There's a long table with pages set out. Many pages on the ground. There's a few texts. It's a mess in here. Things have been moved all over. There's actually a bed to the side, and there's a lot of these covers and blankets have been moved over, and because you did so well, you feel you're actually drawn to the bed. Not any of these texts. And this young man, cloaked very darkly, and his hood's still up. He's walking forward and trying to guide you to the table. It's right over here.
Robert will walk with him over the table, scanning the papers laying about. Does he see the work this man is working on right now?
You do see that there is a quill out, and there are papers here, but nothing that looks new. Nothing has been recently written down. These are all old pages. You can tell that immediately.
Where's your recent transcription?
What you talking about, Knight?
The one you told me you were working on.
Oh, I made a mistake. It's not this one at all. It's He's looking around, is looking at you very nervously, and his hand is reaching behind him. It's his eyes just go wide as he turns.
Robert will attempt to awe him as this man's behavior is becoming erratic.
Alright, he's actually turning, and he turns and moves immediately to run and jump out the window that you saw the light through. He actually shatters through some of the wood and the glass.
He jumped right out of the window.
Yes, with speed and power and strength that you didn't expect to see in such a young man.
Well, Robert will see this display. He'll wow, that's just weird. Someone just jumps out a window. Okay. Well, anyway, Robert will look out the window and see what direction he went.
He is running down the street in the way you came, very quickly. Not supernatural quickly, but at a good clip.
Robert will rush to the bed and see if there's anything underneath it.
Alright, you let this man just run away?
Yeah, I mean, he's not going to chase this man.
Alright. You see looking out the window, it's drawn a few gazes, a few strange looks. What's this man doing? Just apparently hurled himself out of this building and took off running. A few people do look up and catch your gaze, though.
Great. Well, Robert's going to go back into the room, look underneath the bed, and also for any cloak or hood that this man may have had laying about this room.
Sure. You do find this room is actually kind of turned upside down, and There are some scribblings that you find that look more recent, although none of it makes sense to you. And because you read Greek and Latin, don't you?
Actually, not Greek, Latin.
Okay. Well, you understand some of what's here, but some of it you don't. And actually, it doesn't even look Latin to you. And actually, as you are searching the bed, you find something hard, something solid. I think it's a book. And as you uncover it, you feel something through the cloth.
Robert will... Oh, go ahead.
I want to say, as you open the cloth, you see a very small text. It's old and weathered. It's a hardbound pamphlet bound together by knots of thick string, very small. The only coloration is the yellow beiging from use and time, the frayed pages and a few burn marks. You read Profanum Imperium, not on the text, but on a paper scrolled right next to some other texts. You think it's Aramaic. Perhaps that's what this original text is, and the paper he seems to have been writing on, you read that in Latin. Profane power.
Robert's going to wrap the book up in cloth and prepare to depart, making sure that he is not seen as best he can.
You touch the book?
He'll touch it as it's wrapped in a cloth. Directly touching the book, I guess he would have done that to open it.
When you touch the book just to open it, you have this momentary image. Roll your aspects. No difficulty, I just want to see what you roll. I don't think you rolled.
I didn't roll properly.
Just roll 2 dice. You get an image, a flash of something. It's a great stone humanoid, like a carving, and there's blood trickling down where the face would be, into a pool of blood. And it strikes you with a shiver of fear, fear you haven't felt in a long time. That's all you see, that's all you feel. It's like your vision is obscured by this, and then it returns as you hold it in your hands.
Robert will drop the book at stunned by this vision. He'll look at it for a moment before deciding that this thing must be of great danger, and he'll bundle it up, perhaps using the sheets this time, a lot of extra cloth, and carry it out of this place.
Alright. You wrap it up. The characters and symbols across the front forming some language unknown to you. But you wrap it up, and you make your way out. And as you're leaving, you can see in the distance that perhaps there are guards on the way, but you're making good speed away from the scene. And as you move down the street, away from this place in the opposite direction of whoever this supposed scribe was, the scene fades. And with that, we will end our session since we are at 9, and unfortunately cannot go later.
Aww.
Good game. I'm sorry we got off to such a slow start because of my technical difficulties. But I thought we had a good game all the same.
Then Comcast decided these didn't need to be over.
Yeah. Technical difficulties aside, I enjoyed that a lot. We got to more stuff than I thought we would in the time we had.
Oh yeah, I kept a good pace this game.
Yeah. Without further ado, let's do entertaining role player. We will start with Cormac.
Oh gosh. It's hard tonight, but I am actually going to give it to Thomas for managing to piss off and surprise Cormac both in one night.
Well done. Thomas, how about you?
I'm going to give it to Cormac. Good job staying in character in spite of himself.
Cool.
The touch with the horse was very nice. Going back to your roots and whatnot.
Yeah, I like that a lot too. Robert.
I'll give it to Thomas.
Excellent. And Sarah.
I'll give it to Robert. Doing something for no apparent reason and finding a potential demon book.
Boy, howdy.
You don't know what that is. Could be anything.
I know. It was a joke.
Demon book. Obviously, it's a Necronomicon.
Could be anything tied to magic. It is. Demonic. It'd just be more music that way.
Profanum Imperium is just a really serious book for jokes, so.
Yes.
Cool. Well, I had fun. Hope you guys did too, even though we got off to a late start.
I did.
Yes, yes.
Alright, sweet. I'll give 3 experience all around since you guys bear with me so well at the beginning of that. And I may or may not have stuff to send some of you guys with some of your stuff you're doing on the side. And we will pick it up next week.
Excellent.
Exactly. I mean, excellent.
I promise this time I will have my audio sorted out long before the game.
And if not, you know that a 10-minute system restore is all it takes.
Yeah, apparently. After a fucking hour and 45 minutes, it's all it took. Okay, cool. Good game. Thanks, guys. Have a good night.
Night.
Good night.
Night.